Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Welcome everybody to Get Paid for Your Pad, episode 109. And as always, I want to start with a shout out to Hostfully, the sponsor of this podcast. Hostfully makes beautiful guidebooks, online guidebooks. Guidebooks are very important to communicate local recommendations to your guests. And instead of composing a PDF document or a Word document, you can go to hostfully.com/pad, P-A-D, and there you can compose a beautiful online guidebook. And if you sign up now, you actually get a free guidebook consultation exclusive to Get Paid for Your Pad listeners. So go ahead and check out Hostfully, that's hostfully.com/pad. So I'm in Los Angeles right now. It is Sunday, November 20th. And yesterday, the Airbnb Open 2016 concluded. It was a 3-day event. It was a really big event. It was the first time that Airbnb organized the Airbnb Open. The first one was in 2014 in San Francisco. And that was a relatively smaller event. I think there was about 1,000, maybe 1,500 people there. Last year, it was in Paris. And there were about 5,000 people. And this year, if we have to believe Airbnb, then there was 15,000 tickets sold. Now, I don't know if there were 15,000 Airbnb hosts because there was a big concert on Saturday night, and I think it was open to the public. And so I don't know if they included all the tickets they've sold for that concert or if there was actually 15,000 Airbnb hosts at the event. But anyway, it was a very big event. It was 3 days. There was lots and lots of speakers. There was over 100 in total, I think. And just, lots of things to do. So it was really awesome. So I just wanted to update you a little bit on, what went down, what the announcements were. And I'll start with Wednesday night. I met up with all the speakers actually at the Airbnb Open because for the first time, they actually invited me to speak. Well, they didn't really invite me. My good friend David Jacoby, who's the CEO of Hostfully, he applied for me to speak at the Airbnb Open, and that's how I got to speak. And so I met up on Wednesday night with a lot of the other speakers. And there were some people who've actually been on the podcast. There was Evelyn Badia, who's been on the podcast before. There was Alex Nick and Susan Douglas, who was actually in the latest episode number 108. There was a lot of people who worked for Airbnb as well, so it was really cool to meet everybody, and they gave us kind of the instructions for our speaking gig. Then Thursday morning, there was a big event at the Orpheum Theater downtown LA, where Brian Chesky was to announce what he said would be the most important announcement for Airbnb since they started. And so everyone was pretty excited about that. I didn't really know what he was going to announce. I had a suspicion though, but it was, I think it pretty much exceeded everyone's expectations. It was pretty awesome. And if you go to the website airbnbopen.com, you can actually watch the video where he makes the announcement. But I just wanted to go through what he announced and what the changes are to Airbnb. So first of all, the homes thing is still going to be Airbnb's main gig, but there's two other things that they've added to the app. The first one is called Places. And Places, I kind of see it as Foursquare or Yelp integrated into the Airbnb app. So if you go to your Airbnb app, because it's already live, if you update it, then you should see that there's now a tab called Trips, and there you can find homes, experiences, and places. And places are basically recommendations from local hosts on restaurants and all sorts of places that you can visit as a traveler. And so these places, they get there's comments from Airbnb hosts, and you can even book restaurants through the app, which is pretty cool. But I think the bigger addition to the platform is the experiences, and this is something that I think a lot of people were expecting, and I think they've worked on it for quite a long time, and it is kind of a logical next step because if you think about a travel experience, the accommodation is only part of it, right? If you go on a trip, you need a place to stay, but obviously you want to do something. You want to get to know the city or wherever you are. You want to have experiences, and what most travelers do is they go to the tourist highlights, right? And they buy maybe like a Lonely Planet book, or they go on the internet and they find out like what are the most interesting things to see in the particular place where they are visiting. And so what's interesting about that is that those places that most visitors will go to, the experiences that they will have are typically not the experiences that locals would have. And I can tell, since I started hosting on Airbnb, I've been seeing the city of Amsterdam a little bit different than before, because how there's all these touristy things to do, and as a local, even though it might be interesting to do them, as a local, you just don't associate with it, right? It might be like certain museums or certain highlights. I know in Holland, for example, the biggest tourist attraction in Holland it's called the Keukenhof, and it's this place where they have a lot of flowers. I don't know exactly what it's like because I've never been. But there's tons of flowers, and I think they create like beautiful like landscapes with tulips and I don't know, with roses or something. Anyway, this is the biggest tourist attraction in Holland, and I've never been, and I don't think most of my friends have been there either. And it's just that I think you kind of take for granted the things that you have as a country or as a city. And, maybe you don't really appreciate it as much because, to you, it's just a normal thing, like if you grow up in Holland, there's a lot of flowers. And so, to me, it's kind of like, yeah, there's flowers, but for a lot of people from other countries, that's a really special and beautiful thing. But anyway, the idea behind experiences is that, as a visitor, to experience the city as a local. And so anyone can now create an experience on Airbnb. So what is an experience? Well, for example, you could take a few people on a pub crawl or something, or you could drive them around the city and show them the most interesting spots. You could provide surf lessons. There's all sorts of things that you can think of. Whatever you're passionate about, whatever you enjoy doing and sharing with other people from all around the world, you can now create that experience and you can sell it on the Airbnb platform, and you don't have to be a host to do that. So this really opens up Airbnb as a platform to pretty much anyone who has an internet connection or a laptop or a smartphone, which is like pretty much everyone, right? So I think that's really cool. I think it's a very logical move and a very, very cool move as well. So very excited about that. I was already thinking about what kind of experience I could create, but then I'm usually not in Amsterdam very long. So I think this is more suitable to people who are based in one location than for somebody like me who's always traveling. But I do want to think about how can I participate in this, because I really want to be part of it as well. So experiences are not yet available everywhere. They have started with 12 cities. So they are Los Angeles, Paris, Tokyo, London. I'm just scrolling through the app as I speak. San Francisco. I see Cape Town. And then I see Seoul in Korea, Florence in Italy, Detroit, Miami, and Nairobi. I believe that is in Kenya, is it? Not sure. And Havana in Cuba, and Oahu in Hawaii. So those are the 12 cities where you can now create experiences, and experiences come in two sorts. You can either create an immersion experience where you teach or do something with people for several days, and you can also create a shorter experience that would only take like a few hours or so. So if you scroll through the app, you'll get an idea of what the type of experiences people are offering. And that way you can get some inspiration for if you want to create your own experience. But let me just go through the experiences that I see in LA just to give you an idea. I see farming and gardening for 3 days, and that person already has 12 reviews. So I guess it works the way with the reviews. I guess we'll leave you a review, and I guess you also get to review your guest as a experience host. But there's a 3-day farming and gardening trip. There's hiking outdoors with Ted the Ranger for 3 days as well. And these experiences are priced are all around $150 to $250. There's music and Latin dancing. There's LGBT advocacy and neighborhood architecture. So there's lots of different experiences, and they are categorized by city, but also by category. So you'll see arts and design, and then you'll see social impact, food and drink, lifestyle, entertainment, sports, you name it. So anyway, I think it's a really cool addition to the platform. So continuing with my overview of the different events at the Airbnb Open. So on Thursday, after the announcement, there were neighborhood walks, and then in the evening there were dinners. And then on Friday and Saturday, there were lots of speaking events. So there was lots of different locations, different theaters. It was all spread out sort of over an area of about, 5 or 6 blocks downtown Los Angeles. It was really cool. There was lots of different locations and lots of things to do. And as I mentioned, there was lots of speakers, so lots of interesting stuff to learn. This time they invited some pretty well-known people to speak. Obviously, there was the founders of Airbnb. There was the CMO of Airbnb, Jonathan Mildenhall. There was Chip Conley, the head of hospitality of Airbnb. Joe Bott, the guy who is responsible for creating the Airbnb website. Like, he's in charge of the technical side. But they also invited some celebrities. There was Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm not sure if I pronounced it correctly, but she's pretty famous actress. And there was Ashton Kutcher was there as well. And he did a speech with Brian Chesky. And there was a little incident during that speech because a young lady came onto the stage and she wanted to protest against the Airbnbs on the settlements, the Jewish settlements in Palestine, or that part of Israel that people refer to as Palestine. I'm not exactly sure what the deal is over there, but in any case, she wasn't very happy about the fact that there's people who run Airbnbs in that particular area in Israel. So she felt the need to get on the stage with a big flag, and it said Airbnb out of settlements. And I guess the security, I don't know why they let her up the stage, but in any case, Ashton Kutcher kind of was pretty friendly to her. He shook her hand. He told her something like, "Hey, let me explain you how I feel about Airbnb." And then she's like, "No, let me explain you what I think about Airbnb." And she started talking, and he's like, "Well, it's not really your turn to speak. It's not really your stage right now." But he was really polite, and eventually the security guards kind of escorted her out of the room. But you can see the video. It's on YouTube. I'll put a link on the show note page that you can find at getpaidforyourpad.com/podcast. That's where you'll see all the episodes. And so if you click on this one, you'll find the link in the show notes so you can watch the video. You can also just go on YouTube and search for Ashton Kutcher protest at Airbnb, and then you'll probably find it as well. By the way, at AirbnbOpen.com, the website, you can find lots of videos of the event. So if you're interested, go ahead and watch some of those. So then let me talk a little bit about the presentation that I did. So I was presenting together with Susan Douglas, who has a website, airbnbexpert.com. She was also a guest on the podcast before, episode 108. And so we met briefly a few days before the event to sort of discuss what we're going to be talking about. And the topic of our talk was branding on Airbnb. So how do you brand your listing? Which is a topic that I actually didn't feel so familiar with because I've never really thought about branding on Airbnb. So I really had to kind of gather my thoughts, and I actually Googled what is a brand to completely understand what that actually means. And it's funny because I came across an article where I think it was a Forbes article, and the author explained that brand is kind of an interesting word because everybody kind of knows what it is, but very few people know exactly what it is. And I guess a lot of people have different interpretations of the word brand as well. But my interpretation was kind of the brand of your listing is what somebody would think about your listing and think about you as a host after spending a few minutes of scrolling around through your listing. And, I won't repeat the whole talk that I did. If people are interested, then, I could do another episode on that. But I can give you kind of the takeaways. So me and Susan, we both talked for about 20 minutes, and then we took questions and answers after that. But I think the main takeaways are, when you have your Airbnb listing, you need to think about, who is your audience? Like, who do you want to host? And who would be the people that would love to stay at your listing most? And so, for example, in my case, my apartment is very suitable for groups that consist of two couples because I have 2 bedrooms that are equal size and they're on opposite ends of the apartment. So you have a lot of privacy as a couple. You won't necessarily hear what's going on in the other bedroom. And so, I never thought about branding my Airbnb listing. It's just that my guests just told me that was something that they really, I really enjoyed, and that's something that's very rare in Amsterdam as well. So I realized that was kind of my unique selling point, and that I should target that specific audience. And so I do that by using my title. I call my listing Perfect Couples Getaway, and I also highlight sort of the things that I think that couples would enjoy doing. So when you're a couple, you probably want to go out to restaurants. You probably want to go to some museums and stuff. So in my listing, I emphasize that there's lots of really nice restaurants in my neighborhood and that it's walking distance to lots of museums. Now, what I don't do is mention any of the sort of, the more well-known things about Amsterdam, like, the partying, the drugs, the red light districts. Those are all things that I don't talk about at all in my listing because that's not, the people that come to Amsterdam to enjoy those aspects of the city is not the audience that I want to target. And so that's kind of my brand. My brand is, I have a perfect place for couples. And so, the question is like, how do you figure out, what your brand is? Well, I think there's 3 ways how you can look at it. You can either look at your place, your accommodation, your house or your spare room or whatever it is, and just think, who is this most suitable for? And, that's how I figured out what my brand was. But you can also think about, who visits my area. So Susan, for example, she talked a lot about the fact that in her particular area, she lives in North Hollywood, there's lots of young girls visiting her area who come to dance or to act. I can't remember exactly what it was, but in any case, that's, young girls from all over the world. That's kind of like an audience for her. And so she kind of optimized her listing specifically for these young women. And how she came up with that was because she noticed that a lot of these girls were visiting her area and were staying at her place. So that's how she figured it out. So the second way is you can look at, who visits my area. The third way you can think about it is to ask yourself, who do I want to host? Because especially if you share your space with your guests, then you don't just want to host to anyone, probably, because you're always going to have somebody in your house almost if you're doing it full time. So it becomes a pretty big part of your life, and so you want to host people that you can relate to, that you enjoy spending time with. And, whoever those people may be, that's something that you can think about as well. And then if you figure that out, then you can use your listing to communicate and, specifically speak to that audience. And one comment that Susan made that I thought was really helpful is, if instead of thinking about, an audience, which is like a group of people, right? There's lots of different people in that group. You can also just think about your perfect client, like your perfect guest, and kind of turn that person into a mascot. So if you think about your perfect guest, and then just think about what would that person want, what would that person want to do, what does that person need, and then you can sort of optimize your listing for that particular hypothetical person. And then if you do that, then your listing will automatically communicate and talk to that specific audience. So that's kind of a recap of the things that we talked about. By the way, it was really cool. We were presenting in a pretty small place, actually. It was the Pattern Bar in downtown LA, and they originally had envisioned that about 60 people would show up, and so they put a bunch of chairs in the bar, and they figured 60 people would be a good fit, but a lot more people showed up. And initially they only wanted to let 60 people in, but then, me and Susan both obviously wanted to give as many people the chance to attend as possible. So, we told the Airbnb guys to let more people in. So eventually they brought in, more places to sit. And then the whole place kind of filled up with people standing as well. And so I think once everybody was in, it must have been at least double. Maybe there was 120, 130, maybe even 150 people. But even then, there was still a line outside of at least a block. So a lot of people couldn't get in. And I received a lot of messages as well from people that listened to the podcast or just other people that wanted to attend the presentation but couldn't. And some people were pretty disappointed and kind of yelled at the bouncer. But and I understand why, because these events are all at the same time, and so some people were waiting in line for half an hour and they couldn't get in, and then by the time you can't get in, it's kind of too late to go to a different event, so you're kind of wasting your time. Anyway, I hope that this is a message for the people who organize Airbnb Open next year, to give me and Susan, if we're going to do it together again, hopefully I'll get a bigger space so that more people can come to the presentation. Anyway, we'll see that for next year. By the way, rumor has it that next year will be in London. This is not confirmed, but it seems like a logical place. This year it was in the US. Last year it was in Europe. So you would think that Europe is up for next year, and then London is the second biggest Airbnb market in Europe. So I think that makes a lot of sense, but we'll see. They haven't announced it yet. I think they will probably announce it soon, though. Last year they announced, I think every single time so far, they've announced the next location, at the Airbnb Open. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't do that this time. So then on Saturday there was a bunch of events as well, like Friday and Saturday, the whole day. There was all sorts of speakers and all sorts of stuff going on. But then Saturday, around 5 o'clock or so, there was the yearly Bello Awards. And these are awards that hosts receive for being an exceptional host, doing something really cool for your guests, or having a unique listing. And so the founders, Brian, Joe and Nate, they presented these awards. There was a comedian as well who was pretty funny. I can't remember his name, but he made some pretty funny jokes. So that was quite entertaining. But it was pretty cool. They got all the people who won the awards on the stage. It was a little bit too much like feel good for my taste. Maybe that's because I'm from Holland, and in Holland we have a saying, being normal is already crazy enough. But it was a bit of a show, and then it's a lot of image building, how belong anywhere, and Airbnb is all about love, about contributing, about giving, and although I think that's great, I just kind of felt like it's a little bit too much sometimes at these events, And I also heard some people commenting on, there was a Q&A session with Brian, Joe, and Nate. And, a lot of people want to know things like, okay, what do they think about, the developments in New York where, the city is pretty much trying to ban Airbnb. And, there's some other stuff going on that, people probably want to know their opinion about, but I guess they're probably not allowed to speak about that from the legal department or their PR advisors or whatever it may be. But apparently the questions that they supposedly got from the audience, they were all sort of kind of in line with the things that they want to talk about, right? The things that they want to communicate, how Airbnb is about sharing, about belonging everywhere, about connecting with people and providing people with amazing local experiences and stuff. And there was very little room for to talk about any sort of things that aren't really going Airbnb's way. And there's a lot of places around the world where there's a lot of friction between the local authorities, between the public. Even there was some demonstrations, by the way, here in LA as well, because a lot of people seem to think that Airbnb is not good for the neighborhoods because they take residential accommodation out of the city and turn it into like illegal hotels. And so if you walk around at this event, it kind of feels like everything is awesome and everything is going perfectly. But in reality, there's obviously a lot of stuff going on that a lot of friction and so I think it would be interesting if those guys would speak a little bit more about that, because people want to know, and it's interesting, and to kind of always hear the same message about the things I mentioned gets a little repetitive sometimes. But in any case, I do think it was a great event. It was very well organized, and I can only imagine how much effort it takes to organize an event like this with anywhere from, I don't know, between 6,000 and 15,000 hosts showing up from all around the world. So definitely, I think they did a good job, and I'm looking forward to next year's event. So to finalize this episode, again, a shout out to the sponsor, Hostfully. I'm using them myself. And I have actually had several comments from my guests who have told me that they found it really useful. And I found it very useful too, because I used to send out a PDF that I would attach to an email. But now that I'm using Hostfully, I can just send my guests a link. And Airbnb, by the way, have updated their messaging app, and also the messaging system that you use on the desktop. You can now send links and attachments and photos even to your guests within the Airbnb app. So I think I'm gonna step away from using email at all, because now all the functionality is sort of on the Airbnb platform. So I may as well use that, and especially now that I don't need to send attachment, I just sent a link to my own customized guidebook that I created on hostfully.com. And so again, if you want to check it out, it's completely free, so it's kind of a no-brainer. You go to hostfully.com/PAD, and especially for Get Paid for Your Pet listeners, you can get a free guidebook consultation. So the people at Hostfully will actually help you to convert the guidebook that you have right now, whether it's a Word document or a PDF or whatsoever. They'll help you to convert that into a beautiful, designed and nicely looking online guidebook. So go ahead and check that out. Other than that, of course, I'll put all these links and videos and stuff that I talked about. I put it in the show notes for this episode, so that you can go ahead and check that out at getpaidforyourpet.com/podcast. That's where you'll find all the episodes. And we'll have a lot of episodes coming up. I'm going to focus on the podcast a lot in the next few months. I'm even thinking about doing 2 episodes a week. So definitely stay tuned. And I have met a lot of people here at the Airbnb Open that I want to interview in the next few months. And another thing I realized is there are so many startups in the Airbnb space now. I've met some new startups that are doing some great things, and so I thought maybe I'll do a podcast where I'll just kind of give an overview of who are all these startups, what do they do, how can you use them, etc. Just to give you guys kind of an update of what's going on in that space. So keep an eye out for that, and thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Get paid for your pet. 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 Get paid for your pet.